Very good morning to you. I am Big Race Jim. Welcome to Past the Wire TV. We are watching the sunrise somewhere deep in the heart of Texas. New concept here on Past the Wire TV, Sunday morning coffee, where I'll take you through a couple of the big races from the weekend. We'll watch the replay. We'll see what we see, and we'll kind of break down the race and maybe provide a little bit of handicapping insight for when some of these horses come back. Of course, Sunday morning coffee brought to you by our good friends at SureBet Coffee and AmWager. Sign up at amwager.com, get a $150 deposit bonus. So we saw a couple of decent races at Tampa Bay Downs. The seemingly, the year of Dylan Davis continues. He had a nice stakes win yesterday at Tampa. He had a couple of other winners down at Tampa, and the guy just the guy just wins. I don't know what else to tell you. He's one of the hardest working jocks in the game, and on top of that, just an all around good guy. So always nice to see when Dylan Davis is in the winner's circle. We're not going to talk about his stakes victory, though. We are going to talk about the Sam F. Davis because, as you know, John's doing the Kentucky Derby radar shows every week. And pretty much now through May, we've got a Derby prep just about every single weekend. So the Sam F. Davis, we had a pretty deep field, full starting gate, and really the race was pretty much won going along the backstretch, in my opinion. And let's take a look at that replay. You had John Hancock flying out of the gate, and if you are a a tracking trips member, you'll know John specifically mentioned this horse going to the lead and that being a very, very dangerous proposition for the rest of the field. I mean, you saw Flavian Pratt kind of hustle him out of there. He knew he wanted the lead to kind of follow up on that maiden breaking victory, and settling down here. I thought he looked pretty darn tough, right? You could see that the horse kind of settled a little bit. He let this Owen Almighty, the other low price favorite, kind of come up alongside. And I thought, because this horse is so lightly raced, I thought that was super smart by Pratt. Let him see another horse look him right in the eye. And if you look here too, this is where they start to put a little bit of a gap on the rest of the field. That one starting to work pretty hard, the four already in an all-out drive, the eight in an all-out drive, and the two favorites, John Hancock, Owen Almighty, just keep putting more and more distance onto the field. And when they turned for home, it was really just like a matter of who blinked first. And you had Owen Almighty right about here, put him nose in front, and then John Hancock battled right back as Jason Beam says, and wins by half a length. And I thought that was world class by Flavian Pratt to get him out of the gate, get him into the race, have Owen Almighty look him square in the eye in the backstretch, and you knew coming for home that horse was ready for a fight, and he dug in and won. Now, moving forward, we don't traditionally see horses that prep at Tampa Bay Downs for the Kentucky Derby. We don't really see them kind of progress and be legitimate contenders for the Derby. And I think one of the horses that um, that sticks out to me is that was a Classic Causeway, I think, who won the two Derby preps at Tampa Bay Downs a couple of years ago, and then was like 50 to 1 in the Derby, and then they moved him to turf. Um, that horse kind of comes to mind as somebody that people thought might be a legitimate contender, but never really panned out. So we'll take a wait and see approach. But when your connections are Flavia Pratt and Brad Cox, you know that they're going to throw a couple of starters in that Kentucky Derby gate. So we'll see how this horse progresses. I was pretty impressed for such a lightly raced horse to kind of have that good bit of education. And like John and I have always talked about over the years, you want a horse in the Derby in these grade 2, grade 1 preps that are going to be worth 50 and 100 points coming up here in the next couple of months. You want a horse that is able to look the competition in the eye, dig down, and fight on like we saw from John Hancock. And again, going back to tracking trips, if you remember, John laid this out exactly. Said if he goes to the lead, he's dangerous. And he went to the lead and he was dangerous. He even got passed. Well, not passed, but lost the lead halfway down the stretch and battled back. So we always like to see that. The other race that I want to take a look at is this race from Santa Anita to San Marcos. And I was on Easter here, and I thought he was in a fine spot right about here, right? You think the race is pretty compact. Um, if you watch a lot of you watch a lot of New York turf racing, everything seems to be super stretched out. They go, they're crawling. But here, some pretty honest fractions, almost 24 flat for this first quarter. And, Frankie Dettori on There Goes Harvard, just, looking like absolutely the nuts in this race. I thought, getting out front and kind of settling down was the right play. And, anybody who thinks Frankie Dettori is kind of, um, over the hill. He shows up in these turf stakes, especially at Santa Anita, and just kind of puts everybody to sleep. And I thought this was another fantastic ride by him. But even here, like the field is pretty compact, and you don't really feel like anybody has lost their chance at this particular moment. But you can still see though, pretty even fractions, getting a little bit slower, fractions of a second slower as the race was going on quarter by quarter. But you could see Frankie really hasn't even asked this horse for much at all until he gets to the top of the stretch, and then he puts a length or two on the field, and that was pretty much it. Easter did some decent running late, but when you have to swing out 5 wide in the stretch like that, pretty tough to make up some ground. I thought Lord Bullington did pretty well to hang on for second, but there's just no match for anybody um, but There Goes Harvard. Another horse too, just seemingly continues to pick up um, paycheck after paycheck. But I would give this win to um, to Frankie Dettori, and just putting putting this horse out in front and never really giving anybody much of a chance um, after that. So those two races I thought were probably the two biggest races from the weekend. The stakes at Tampa were fine. Um, again, Dylan Davis gets another stakes victory down in Florida, and he's having a pretty solid winter for himself down there. But I thought these two races were good examples of how a rider can put a horse in a race, kind of control things, and give his horse everything that they need to be successful in the last quarter, last half mile of the race. And I mean, look, look who we're talking about: Frankie Dettori and Flavian Pratt. So hopefully those were two decent examples of how to kind of pinpoint different parts of a race and see if your horse is in the right spot, or a spot that is going to be advantageous to winning, or at least being there around the wire late. And of course, we always take the opportunity to tout tracking trips, because John laid out that Sam F. Davis pretty perfectly, and he said if John Hancock goes out to the lead, he's going to be pretty dangerous, and he ended up being pretty dangerous. We're going to step aside. We'll take a quick break, and then we'll come back and we'll talk a little bit more. You are watching Sunday Morning Coffee on Pass the Wire TV, presented by Shorebet Coffee and AmWager.
Go.
It's simplification and Javier.
All right. So as we look along into the next couple of weeks, we have an absolutely loaded field for the Risen Star, I believe it is, coming up this upcoming Saturday at the fairgrounds down in New Orleans. And it's a loaded field, but who sticks out there to me, at least, is East Avenue, another horse who John liked in tracking trips back when they were running those fall championship stakes at Keeneland, and he won the Breeders' Futurity in pretty convincing front running fashion. And then unfortunately, that horse missed the break at Del Mar in the Breeders' Cup when we saw Citizen Bull run away with the Juvenile. So it'll be nice to see East Avenue come back. Again, I think the tactic for him is going to be getting out in the front, getting a comfortable lead, and running away from them late. So let's see if he's able to do that. But I do think that that race coming up next weekend is going to be a good one. It'll be nice to see him come back in that race. Again, as we look forward, and John and I have talked about this plenty on our Kentucky Derby radar shows that we've done together over the years. For me, looking at the Kentucky Derby right now and through, what are we in, February, even into these next couple is where you really start to take some good notes. February is still kind of the information gathering stage for me as it pertains to the Kentucky Derby. And then once we get into March, then it's okay. These races are the ones that really start to count. Of course, in terms of the point system and all, but in terms of the information that you're gathering and the mental notes, the physical notes that you are taking on these horses as they progress in the lead up to the Kentucky Derby. I'm very, very strict with my handicapping based on those last two races. That penultimate prep that we see in March, and that final prep that we see in April. So still very much in the fact finding, information gathering phase um, of the Kentucky Derby Trail for me. But as we get into the next couple of weeks and those preps start rolling around in March, that's when me personally, at least, I really like to start to sink my teeth in. But John Hancock and the Sam F. Davis, I thought was super impressive, and he showed a lot of stuff that you would like to see from a Derby contender, a legitimate Derby contender, and we'll see what East Avenue can bring this upcoming weekend. Those California stakes are interesting too. We've seen um, it's three Bob Baffords and one other horse, and it's a little disappointing from a wagering standpoint. But again, you have to think these horses are going to end up in the Kentucky Derby starting gate now. So while we might not be wagering on those short fields, um, it's still important to watch those and pay attention and gather some information. And as we get through the next couple of weeks, I think a lot of stuff is going to start to a lot of stuff is going to start present itself here. So one thing that I wanted to do with this show that I think might be a little fun, I'm going to call it the last sip, and it'll be how we kind of round out the show. Just a little commentary from me about what I'm seeing in the racing world. Kind of not necessarily news of the day, but kind of an overall health of the industry. What our friends on horse racing Twitter are talking about, and see if I can make some sense of it all and share my opinion on what I think is happening. So what have we seen over the last month, really, right? They're talking about closing down Gulfstream. They're talking about closing down Santa Anita. We've got the commissioner, Mike Rapoli, out there talking about the declines in racing. And I was surprised that everybody else was surprised when Belinda Stronach said that they were trying to um, decouple the casino from horse racing in Florida, so she can sell off the track and move the racing elsewhere to a plot of land that is yet to be named, which in my opinion doesn't exist and never will exist. Um, I was shocked that everybody else was shocked. She's been talking about this for years, if we've been paying attention. Santa Anita's been on the market for years. Gulfstream's been on the market for years. And this has been the way it's been trending. Now, why is that? A million reasons. If you want to start with the gambling aspect, um, I mean, you're watching this, so you love horse racing just as much as I love horse racing. It's the best gambling game there is on the planet. But if we're being honest with ourselves, it's a horrific product, right? There's long wait times between these races if you're focused on one card. The pricing is horrible. Some tracks are taking out 20% on a win bet, right? We all go we all go crazy when there's low takeout pick five, and it's 15%. they're they're taxing us into oblivion, and the game is getting harder and harder. People aren't playing it, and we collectively as a whole um, are not tolerating a bad product with bad pricing, with a bad experience. And this has been going on for years. And the answer to that from these tracks has been to, okay, well, if they're upset about the gambling product, let's just not talk about it. Let's bill it as an event. Let's get people to the track as a sporting event, as a social event. And the prices went through the roof. You're, you're pricing out the everyday fan for, these big days kind of scattered throughout the year where you're just, charging an arm and a leg for food, drink, tickets to get in. And I think we're starting to see that. I've been at the Pegasus with John and the Pass the Wire team for the last 2 years, and more recently, the last 2 weeks, like the place was pretty empty compared to the year prior when we were there. I thought two Pegasuses ago, it was pretty crowded. Like it was tough to walk around. But a couple weeks ago, you could walk around pretty freely. Just about all the seats around the paddock there were empty, and to me, that was indicative of just people being priced out of the market. And what else did we see? $75 just to get in the door at the Belmont at Saratoga, uh, coming up in June. A buddy of mine sent me a screenshot. He was going to buy a picnic table. I guess he got some pre-sale thing. A picnic table for Friday and Saturday for six people is over $1,000. I mean, what are we doing? What are we doing? And it's all of these things kind of compounding into why horse racing is where it is. If you even want to bring in the whole sports betting aspect of it, like sports betting's been around for 6 years, 6+ years now, widespread and getting wider and wider. And only last year did we finally start to see tracks working with sports books. And of course, sports betting was never going to be the golden goose for horse racing. It's two totally different products. Sports betting, you have casual people that understand it, that are going to, throw a couple dollars here and there when they're watching a game. But you're not going to have just random people throwing a couple of dollars on random races. They're going to bet the Derby, they're going to bet the Preakness, they're going to bet the Belmont, and that's it. And I've spoken to several executives over the years that work in horse racing, specifically with the wagering platforms or on the media side, and they seem totally fine with just making as much money as possible on Kentucky Derby Day, Belmont Day, and letting those people walk back to whatever other gambling activity that they're doing, and just welcoming them back on Kentucky Derby Day for a $20 win bet. And they're totally fine with that. And maybe they know better than me, but since those conversations started happening between myself and those executives, 2 years ago, the industry's in worse shape than it was, when those conversations started. So I don't know. Maybe maybe they're slow playing it somehow, but that always stuck out to me as like, why why are we not really trying to keep them in here? And then on the media side, I've been told flat out contraction with racetracks is a good thing. And I've been told flat out our broadcasts are not gambling broadcast their sporting event. And again, since those conversations started happening, the industry is in worse shape than it was. And I think in the next couple of years, we're going to see fewer and fewer tracks, fewer and fewer states where racing is a viable product. Now, of course, you have places like New York and Kentucky, especially where um, the legislature is very kind to the racing industry. I mean, it's Kentucky's bread and butter, so that's not going away. New York has invested a ton of state resources into racing over the last couple of years. So that's not going away. But we're going to lose the big A here soon, and that's going to be upsetting. Probably my favorite place to go hang out for a day and watch the races. So even though you have a state in New York that is investing fairly heavily in a new Belmont Park, investing in the industry as a whole, we are seeing the industry contract there. So where is this industry going to be in the next couple of years? I think we're looking at fewer and fewer tracks, and I just don't see the product getting any better from an overall quality standpoint, and an overall pricing standpoint, and that's upsetting. But back to my original point, this has been being discussed for years if you've been paying attention. So the outrage now, I say to the fans and the other people in the industry trying to save it, where have you been? Where have you been? These are the conversations that needed to be happening 5, 6, 7, 10 years ago. And I fear that it might be too little, too late. So with that is the last sip. Hopefully you enjoyed this little concept. We'll watch some replays every Sunday morning, go through the races. I'll opine on whatever the heck is happening throughout the industry, and I'll get you in and out in about 30 minutes so you can start your Sunday. Super Bowl Sunday. Who do I like tonight? I don't know. I keep going back and forth. I've got a lot of friends. My brother-in-law is a huge Eagles fan. I've got some other friends that are big Eagles fans. So rooting for the Eagles for their sake, and I've kind of come around over the last week and a half, thinking we've never seen a team win 3 Super Bowls in a row. So that'll be cool to witness history. So just hoping for a good game. I'll be watching and just kind of taking it all in with no real rooting interest. So hopefully a good competitive football game that we can all enjoy. And if you're watching, hopefully you enjoy it too. And if you're betting, good luck with your wagers, and have an awesome rest of your Sunday, and have a great week. I know John's got plenty planned for this week ahead. Another Derby Radar show coming up to preview that Risen Star at Fairgrounds. Charles will always do his Race Lens preview of a Pick 5 coming up over the upcoming weekend as well. And the Derby seminar, we're going to announce when that is, coming up this week. So when that drops, be sure to get your seats. It's always one of the 2 opportunities every year where you can get really deep insight into that huge race, the Kentucky Derby, and all of the other races over that Oaks and Derby weekend. So thanks again for tuning in, checking out Sunday Morning Coffee with Big Race Jim, and we will catch you next time.
Tracking trips at Past the Wire, no matter what your level of play is. People play the horses for all types of reasons. The action, the excitement, the thrill, the challenge. Some, believe it or not, even play expecting to lose. Me, I don't have that problem. I play to win and take down scores and have been doing it successfully for a long time. This is the life I've chosen. Don't go into battle alone. I do that. And you can have me and Tracking Trips as your second set of eyes. You can be a better. Let's win this fight. Patience, discipline, like a cobra, ready to strike at the right time. When we win, we celebrate, and we celebrate hard because the rewards make all of it worth it. Nobody does it better. Tracking Trips have passed the wire. Be a member, unless of course you hate money.